I mean, yeah. I mean, what is the difference? I mean, do they call it macaroni? I remember you used to call it macaroni,
Yeah.
pasta.
Well, it's funny. I had a friend of mine in med school.
Mm.
God bless him. He was 540 pounds.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
little. That's
And
beautiful.
and he was kind of a southerner that ended up a lot of his life living out by Altoona, Pennsylvania. I think he immigrated to the
Yeah,
southeast.
yeah.
Had a bit of a southern accent. He was like one of our besties. We studied
Mm.
till late, then we would do a food break at midnight. Here's a guy that would take a big Tupperware bucket
Yeah.
and put 2 boxes of macaroni and cheese. It was Piggly Wiggly mac and cheese, and cut up a whole packet of Fun Buddy hot dogs, which were turkey hot dogs, because
Yeah.
turkey's got to be a little bit more dietetic than pork. He would
Wow.
cut them up,
Wow.
make that. Can you imagine a full double box of mac and cheese with a full pack of like 8 hot dogs cut up, and we would be telling stories and laughing our asses off and eating, and then after that we would go, we had a snack, but he had like,
Oh, yeah.
and then it was bedtime.
Wow.
It was bedtime, but we got him. One of my roommates and I got him turned on because he never heard of pasta with garlic and oil,
Oh.
right? Well, but
You're giving a coke. You're giving a drug addict crack when you do that stuff.
well, yeah, but here's this big, huge guy from the South
Mm.
who didn't understand, and I love him dearly. I just haven't seen him in years, and
He's still alive?
he-
God bless him.
well, I hope he's still alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
And he used to stutter a little bit, and he'd go, John. He'd say, flour is flour, pasta is pasta. There's no way that one pasta tastes differently than another.
Mm.
He said it's like having 10 different kinds of steak, and if you cut a piece out of the steak, it all tastes the same. And I said, no,
Mm.
no, 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 no. I said, spaghetti's not linguine. Linguine's not rotelli. Rotelli's not rigatoni. Rigatoni is certainly not gnocchi.
Wow.
On and on and on. I said, then it depends on the sauce that you're putting on top of it.
Mm.
So we turned him on to extra virgin olive oil. This was all the way back in 1987,
Wow.
88-ish, that
Mm.
kind of, right? Whatever pasta we made with extra virgin olive oil and fresh cut garlic and some hot pepper, right?
Mm.
He went ape shit fucking wild.
Yeah.
Like,
Come on, that's
no,
tough.
he did, but he paid no attention, and he went out and bought himself 2 half gallons of corn oil, and he went nuts, and he ate 3 pounds of spaghetti in corn oil with garlic. He was on the toilet shitting his brains out
Wow.
for several days. And he says, well, I can't eat that stuff like you guys can. And I says, well, let me see, what did you use? And it was some off-label brand of corn oil.
Wow.
It was like, wait a minute. I said, this is the stuff you put in your fucking crankcase.
Yeah,
you
your
don't make
corn.
pasta. You don't
Wow.
eat this shit.
How do you think the guy behind me, John, that the chef Bones, how he would do with pasta?
Something tells me he knows the deal. He's just not ready. He's still mad at me from the other day, so he's radio silent right
Okay,
now.
that's all
But
right.
I think he would do pretty good.
Let's do a countdown.
Okay.
All right. I
Yep.
think we're gonna spin the wheel of fate and destiny today.
Yeah, it's a day for the Jersey Wheel of Fate and Destiny.
Love it, Jersey Shore. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey friends, welcome back to the Jersey Alchemist. This is your next squeezing of the grape. I'm your host, Dr. John Gerard Galucci.
And I'm Philip D'Angelo.
Bravo.
I love that conversation because food is one of my favorite subjects.
It
And
is.
pastas. Being
It is.
Italian, we grew up with pastas, but
Yeah.
who doesn't like pasta? I mean, and nobody, listen, pasta, is it sauce or gravy?
Oh, well, jeez.
I mean, we got that
They always
debate
dig up
going on.
those, no, excuse the expression, bones. They always dig up those bones on Facebook. It's like
Yeah.
every 3 months, somebody decides they're gonna slam us with that like we never heard it before.
Yeah, yeah. But that's a process, John. It takes what,
Yeah.
3 hours to, I'll call it sauce, make sauce, right? 2, 3 hours
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do it the right way.
Of course it does,
Well,
because
who's
you
gonna
have to,
who's gonna do that nowadays?
us,
Us,
that's it.
yeah.
We're the only ones. We're
Yeah.
the only ones.
I feel
And then
like
we wonder where everybody else is,
Mm.
right?
I feel all the cultures and the the things we did in our culture and other cultures, I think they're all disappearing. Everything's so bland.
Yeah.
Well,
Well-
it's like Wonder Bread and turkey and
Yeah, well, I got news for you. If the New World Order has its way,
oh boy.
all of the different peoples of the world are now going to be homogenized into one, a loaf. How about a generic, tasteless loaf that no matter how you slice it, it's going to look the same and taste the same. Just like my friend was saying about pasta, that these different shapes and sizes is a hoax. He says it's ridiculous. He says it'll all taste the same because it's all made with the same origin, the same product, the wheat, and I said, no. But then he learned in short order that actually was not true at all.
Wow, wow. Great
Yeah.
story, great. Was his nickname Tiny? I knew a guy that was, whose brother was named Tiny, and he was over 400 pounds. Great guys, both of them, great guys.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, the joke is that this guy, when he was in the Navy, ran a,
Navy?
He before he.
God, we gotta have this guy in the podcast.
Well,
Where is he?
He's down in Florida.
Get him.
I would love to have him on the podcast, but he said he was 195 pounds when he was in the Navy, and they, at the time, I guess they still had hatches that you had to go through, because, if you were going to submerge, those hatches had to be closed and the wheel turned, to keep the place, watertight. You couldn't get through a hatch if you were 400 or 500 pounds, that's for sure. Probably not even 300 pounds.
John, I knew somebody like that as well, that was almost 400 pounds, or maybe just over 400 pounds, and he said he wasn't always this big, and I'm like, yeah, right, that doesn't happen overnight. I mean, would you just
Right.
wake up one day? But he showed me a picture at like 25, and he
Yeah.
was like this.
Well, I'll tell you what, as heavy as this guy was, and as time went on, and I met him in medical school, and then we're still dear friends. Life takes you in different directions, but when we were just coming out of our residencies, he was older, he was heavier, he had oxygen through nasal cannula, I think the sleep apnea thing. But when we were in medical school, and he was 500 pounds, if somebody got, we were all joking, we're all friends, but if somebody really poked him and he wanted to prove a point, he was quick and fast, and he could run 30, 40 feet, like in blinding speed.
Mm.
Yeah, I was completely surprised. So he must have had the bone structure, the tendons to handle 500 pounds. I'll tell you what, I'll never get to 500 pounds, ever. I'll be long dead before that.
Mm.
I don't have the physiology.
Do you think, John, that some people use food, and maybe your friend did, as a comfort? There's some psychological issue or some unhappiness that didn't choose alcohol, didn't choose drugs,
Yeah, of course.
but he chose food. I know I'm a
Yeah.
comfort food eater. There's no doubt about it.
I think a lot of people,
right?
millions and millions,
If-
probably 1 billion people on the planet are like that, right?
If you stress,
Yeah.
I mean,
No, I believe that totally, and I think the people that eat to, they say there's two kinds of eaters. They're the people who they live to eat, that would be us, and there are people who they eat to live.
interesting.
Much healthier, I think, to be a person who eats just to sustain their existence.
Wow. How
I know.
boring.
My son is like that.
Really?
My son is skinny as a rail, and when I
He's
take him
thin.
to a restaurant, you know what he gets?
Mm.
He gets a
So-
salad. He gets a salad with 4 shrimp on it.
Wow.
And I look at him and go, "That's it? That's it?" And
Wow.
He says, yeah, Dad, what do you want? What do you want me to be fat like you?
Whoa,
Well,
whoa, that was unnecessary.
He knows, because I'm busting his chops now. He's gonna bust back. But I guess I should go on my son's diet.
Wow. John, tell him muscle weighs more than fat. When that scale reads a certain number, muscle weighs more than
muscle
fat.
sinks in water and fat floats.
And there's always water retention.
Yep.
See, I know all the husky excuses. I've said them over the years, right?
Yeah, we had a family friend back in the day, and when he used to jump in the water at the Cedar Grove pool, no names named, everybody loved the guy. If he just jumped in and didn't move his arms or his legs, he was floating, and at the level of the water was his belly button. He was just floating like a fucking buoy in the ocean.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
Right? Me, I used to be the example during the lifeguard courses that I was the one that broke the dictum that you can get a body off the bottom of a pool with a shepherd's crook, because no one ever lies flat on the bottom, so there's always a space like a foot or 2 foot. Except me, I could fill my lungs up, jump into the water, and go boing. Because back then I was skin and muscle and bone.
Wow.
Yeah. No more.
No.
I wonder where my water line would be.
Let's find out. It is summertime.
The buoyancy test.
Yeah. You ready for that wheel, pal?
To the wheel,
Let's
brother.
Spin the wheel.
Yep.
Fate and destiny.
The Jersey wheel.
We should get some kind of music.
We should. You're right.
Interesting.
All right. Give it a good one.
Oh, yeah. John, that's a nice spin.
Yeah, that's a good
nice
spin. Good spin.
Wow.
Well, no.
Wow. Bosses.
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 Okay, today's topic, friends,
Bosses.
is bosses.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I don't know where to start. Well, I'd like to go on the record right now saying that my current boss is the best boss I've ever had.
Well,
No.
you know what? I believe that because you speak so fondly of your boss.
Thank
you do,
you.
very
Thank
sincerely.
you. And let me tell you, me and this guy, in a tough part of my life, I went into his organization and he gave me a shot. And that's all I ever asked of him was just give me a chance and I'll prove you that you make the right decision, which I do. And I fight for him and his company every day. And so if I'm talking about bosses, boss, if you're watching, it ain't you. Thank you for everything you've done.
Well, there you go. And that should be well marked. Mark it well.
Yeah.
Mark it well.
Now, I remember when I was younger, John, one of my first jobs, I was working part-time at a grocery store, okay? And listen, hard to believe that
In Nutley?
No. It was on 46. Samson, remember Samson on 46?
Electronics store?
No, that's Samsung.
Oh.
It was, it didn't last long because management and ownership wasn't that great. But it was like your first discount grocery store. And they needed help, and I didn't even have a license yet. So I'm working there, and for some reason, hard to believe that I would rub somebody the wrong way, even at such a young, vulnerable age.
But
But
16?
Yeah, 16, 15, something like that. Well, you had to be 16 to work back then, right? To get a permit?
I think so.
Yeah. So I'm 16, and this guy, his name is Irv. Irv, you rat bastard, if you're still out there. And I'll tell you what, he made me do things. It was like in the Army. You know, in the Army, they tell you to dig a ditch.
Oh, sure.
And then they tell you to fill the ditch.
Oh, that's Cool Hand Luke.
Yeah. Well, Irv had me breaking stuff down, building it back up again. It was like he had nothing else to do. Like there was something going on in his life that Irv took it out on me.
Right.
You know, I even filed a union complaint and won my case against Irv, which definitely sealed my fate.
Union complaint.
Yeah, I had a union complaint. I don't even think I was part of the union back then because I was so young and I was new. But this guy obviously, I don't know, maybe his somebody else wanted the job. I don't know. It was such a thankless job. I was just a gopher, really doing all the dirty work. But that was my first experience with a boss, and it was not.
So you were about
pleasurable.
15, 16?
15 or 16.
15 or 16. Yeah.
He tried to sour me against employment. Didn't work.
Wow.
Didn't work.
You know, my
Who was your first boss?
my very first boss, and it was an off the record thing. I think I was 8.
Hey,
Well, yeah, it was my father. My father was the manager of the Cedar Grove pool. It was a big, big, beautiful outdoor, seasonal swimming pool for the community that was the township of Cedar Grove.
still in
And
operation.
oh, it's beautiful, yeah. And he was the manager there, and 29 years, 29 years, and
Wow.
he loathed the days of when he, you know, mixed emotions about growing up as a kid because he grew up in a cold water flat in Newark, which, conjures up thoughts of a freezing winter and everybody's freezing their asses off, and you know, um, but in the summertime you were sweating your asses off, and he said that he and his brother would sleep on a fire escape.
Wow.
He goes, and they wake up with mosquitoes all over them. It's tough. It's kind of like camping outside with no tent.
Yeah.
But my dad didn't want us to be idle. He never wanted us to be idle because he said, an idle mind is the devil's workshop.
He's
And
right.
in a sense, that's not so far off the mark. So when we first moved to Cedar Grove, and I was, I think, 3.5 or 4, my dad, shortly thereafter, maybe within a season or two, he got a job as the manager in the summer because he was a teacher, through the school year at the Cedar Grove pool. He did. And we spent just about every single day of every summer from the time I was about 4 or 5 until the time I walked away and locked the door of the restaurant there. And I was in medical school. And I knew that when I locked that door, after all of those years and all of those months and all of those weeks and all of those days at the Cedar Grove pool, that I would never go back. It was weird. It was a very, very poignant moment. It was a big chapter of my life closed. It was a 29-year chapter.
John, talk about a remote location shoot for the Jersey Alchemist. Cedar Grove pool might be one. What do you think?
that's a very interesting thought.
Yeah.
But my dad, he didn't want me to be idle, so as opposed to other family members who wouldn't have done what he said for $1 million. He says, "Oh, you see this baby bucket? We had these little tin buckets with a little bucket handle on them. I think they were made of tin or something. And the women that would line up their lounge chairs along the walkway along the pool, and here's the baby bucket right next to their lounge chair. And what are they doing? Boing, flicking the butt, because I guess they must have seen some chick in Hollywood taking that last drag and flicking the butt, because that's cool. There were cigarette butts everywhere all over the Cedar Grove pool. My father said, hey, he goes, I don't want to see a single cigarette butt at the end of this day. And then he says, and it wasn't even, hey, I'll give you $5. It wasn't even, I'll give you $1. It was, this place is a reflection on us because I'm the manager and you're my son. My brother would have told him to go pack it. I say that lovingly. But I took it serious. My dad, I was my dad's right-hand man. Okay, Dad, all day, going this way, going that way, to the point where the women, most of the cigarette smokers would laugh. Here he comes, girls. Here he comes. All right, okay, yeah, here he comes. Here, you done? No, I'm not done, you little jerk. Picking up papers and wrappers and dirty diapers and cigarette butts. That was my first job. And then when I was old enough to actually be on the payroll of the township of the department, the recreation department in Cedar Grove, I don't know how old I was. I think it was 14 or 15. But now I'm getting paid $2 an hour, to be a garbage man at the Cedar Grove pool. And my father had already brainwashed me that place was a reflection on us. And if it looked like a shithole, then we were responsible for why the place looked like a shithole. It wasn't It wasn't the cigarette butt flickers. It wasn't the mothers who had babies that put the dirty diapers under their lounge chair, so at the end of the day, when they folded them up and took off, they conveniently left the dirty diapers right on the concrete. Oh yeah, it wasn't the young girls that used to have dirty tampon fights in the ladies' room. That's not a joke, people. I've seen it all. Now the boys in the boys' room used to get a big wad of toilet paper and wet it in the sink, and when you threw that, it would stick. It would go. The ceiling was full, like hundreds of wet toilet paper bombs that stuck. My job was to get my ass on a big, huge ladder and go up there and scrape them off the ceiling and off the walls and then throw them away. And the ceiling was high. It had to be a 15-foot ceiling. I was like, holy shit. But, I was a young kid, good shape, went up like a monkey. My dad imparted to me what it meant to work harder than everybody around you because everybody's watching you because you're my son. In that sense, he was the toughest boss I ever had, but he had purpose. And he taught me what it meant to work hard and why, and how the rewards would come if you worked harder than everyone else. But what I didn't realize was that people would come into my life long after I stopped working for my dad that were just a bunch of pricks that had no purpose to why they were a prick. And it took me a while to sort that out. And then I found myself working my ass off for a prick who just thought I was a joke because I was working so hard. And that's when I started to realize the guy's making a monkey out of me. And then I would just get up and quit and say, hey, fuck you. And I was always, who's the best pitcher, one of the best pitchers in history?
Tom Seaver.
Tom Seaver, rest his soul. Who's the guy that used to pitch, the chubby guy that pitched in the series between the Mets and the Yankees? What the hell was it?
For the Yankees?
Yeah.
That guy I picked, what, David Wells?
No, not Wells. He was another one.
Yeah.
Didn't they call him the Rocket?
Roger Clemens.
Roger Clemens.
Okay.
When it comes to throwing F-bombs, I'm Roger Clemens. Okay, I make no apologies for that. Because, well, going back to my dad's words, remember who you are? I'm the Roger Clemens of F-bombs. Nobody can throw one like me. No one. You know why? Because a certain set of the population taught me how to throw the F-bomb. Yeah. I had a cousin who was on both sides of the fence. He was, he was a detective and a cop. But then on the other side of the family, everybody was on the other side, if you know what I'm talking about. Those guys taught me how to throw F-bombs. And it really, really those seeds fell on fertile ground. I'm going to go through a list. I'm going to read a list of where I worked and the bosses that I had, no names named, and I'm going to tell you how they treated me. And it all, you put all of that into your life's computer and you come out like, my God, the people that were my bosses, some were really smart and some were purposeful, and some of them ended up being my mentors and they taught me well, and others were just nasty, nasty pricks. And I use that word feckless because they were just, feckless is like just disagreeable, pointless, purposeless. So my dad was my first boss, my mentor, rest in peace. The next job I had, I was a Little League Baseball umpire, and the commissioner of the league was, of course, one of the players' dads, not on my team. And I was an umpire at this point. And the only thing that really meant anything to us was if you put in a request for certain days to not work or to work, I thought there was a rhyme and a reason for why he was making the schedule, and it always seemed like I was on a shitty field when I requested not to be or not at work, not doing the umpire thing. And then I found out that the people that were getting preference over me were his neighbors.
Oh.
Well, that's when I started to say, oh, there's more to this world of working for somebody than them, caring about you and molding you to make you better. Right. Then I was a lifeguard. My dad was my boss again, and I was a reflection of him. So I really had to kind of toe the line. No fooling around. Then my brother and I owned the restaurant at that pool, and you know something? Wow, there was no margin for error, because if you were a slob, if you were shiftless, if you were lazy, man, you were going to get tsunamied by the clientele on a hot day. And we're talking 4,000 people who all want to eat at 11:59 a.m. There's nobody at the restaurant. 60 seconds later, there's 600 people at the restaurant out of 4,000. That's not a joke. That is not a joke. You have to be prepared from the day before. And usually when there was a hot forecasted weekend, we would walk in on a Saturday morning and it was muggy and 95 at like 9 o'clock in the morning, and the ice machine was broken. There wasn't one cube of ice anywhere. Right. Now you got to know what to do. I'm an expert at that. Right. But I was my own boss, and I was harder on myself than anybody could be. Why? Because my dad trained me that way. Then I was a bartender in the 80s. And my boss was my cousin, the same guy who made me Roger Clemens of the F-bomb. But it was really the hotel manager. There was a chain, a big national chain, and the manager used to do things that really pissed me off. He would take me down into the bowels of the hotel, and he would take me into this locked chamber with chain link fence and chains and padlocks, and it was where all the liquor was kept. And he would say to me in his foreign accent, "No, I want you to put this bottle in that bottle." He had me putting house brand garbage, basically bathtub gin and vodka, in the premium bottles. And I was like, oh, so you're having me do this so that you have a plausible deniability that you would never do that, but you were holding this over me because if I didn't do what you said, you'd fucking fire me.
Wow.
Oh, the world runs on people like that. Those are the people that wash out of the hotel industry and become politicians. You can bet your ass on that. Shoe sales. You would think that, what could go wrong with working for, I won't say the name, a shoe store, a very popular national brand of ladies' shoes at the local mall. Well, as it turns out, the manager was 21. She was coming on to me, and when I was feigning her because I had a girlfriend, I found myself no longer on the schedule. And I said, hey, what happened? I'm not on the schedule. Oh, well, when I said I needed your help and you said no, needed your help, wink, wink, and you said no, I can't help you now. Basically, you're fired. You're fired. Yeah, I was 19, she was 21. Can you talk about sexual harassment? I got fired by not being put on the schedule, so she covered her ass because she wanted to be in my car after work. Holy smokes, I couldn't believe it. Liquor delivery. Liquor delivery, there were 3 owners to the institution that I delivered liquor for, right? And one of them was a good guy. The other one was always trying to tell me how academic he was. And then the third guy used to abuse me just for the fun of it, just because I think he was having problems with his marriage. And these are the things that make people either good bosses or shitty bosses. Didn't they make a movie about bad bosses or horrible bosses?
Like absolutely.
Now we're going to step it up to college professors. There were some college professors that to this day are my mentors. God bless them. They're still alive. They're wonderful people. They really gave a shit. If I needed that extra help, they would really, really try to get me from point A to point B. And others didn't give a flying rat's ass whether you got an A, a B, a C, a D. They didn't want to work with you. You were just, making their life more difficult because you gave a shit, but they didn't. Oh, they're there, people. They're there. Dental school. Right out of college, I went to dental school in Manhattan. Holy smokes. I walked out of dental school after a year. You know why? Because it was a bastion of ugly, ugly, manipulative nepotism. And hypocrisy? Holy shit. The hypocrisy in dental school, in that place, in those years, those early years, was so thick. I was like, forget it. Quick story because it's worth telling. In dental anatomy lab, we had to make, it was a practical. That means it's a test. It's not a written test. It's a test where you use your hands and your, all of that stuff and your ability like a sculptor. And we had 146 kids in the class. My lab section had half of that overall number. So half of us file into the dental lab. Everybody's sitting, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, chipper with our lab coats and all that crap. Everybody's got their Bunsen burners and their waxes and their files and chisels and their freers and all of that shit. And everybody got a little envelope with a number in it. And the number corresponded to a tooth in the adult human dentition. Well, if you didn't know what tooth correlated with what number, no matter how good your tooth was, you were going to fail because that means you made the wrong tooth. But that was just a little sidebar. So I get like a maxillary second molar with a cusp of Carabelli, like that was going to throw me. And I made this tooth with my own two hands. That was the essence of the practical. I made this tooth. And when we handed it in, the next day, I got called in to quote the principal's office. And the proctors of the test came over to me, called me into the office, shut the door, and said, listen, we want to know. We want to know. You want to know what? We want to know where you bought the tooth you handed in. And I went, what? What did, like, I was in a, now I'm in this weird, oh my God, my brain was pulsing. It's like the proctors in dental school that administered that practical, that I knew I was going to kill it because I was gifted that way. Don't ask me to kill a math test. Make a tooth, right? I was going to be gifted. They accused me of handing in a commercially purchased tooth. And I couldn't believe my ears. So then I had to ask for a special hearing with the dean of the fucking school. He goes, well, where did you buy it? What? Are you kidding me? So guess what they came up? They came up with that they singled me out of 146 kids. We were in our 20s, that they were going to give me my own practical. And they were all sitting there like in an old cartoon, when the farmer is looking at the turkey and it's Thanksgiving and he's on a wheel with the pedal. It's a grinding wheel and he's grinding the axe, like, can't wait to get this axe sharp enough because I'm cutting your head off because I know I'm right and you're fucked. And so I had 3 of these jerk-offs sitting around me, all kind of, stroking their beards and, pulling at their hair. And they gave me my own personal practical, and they were just waiting to watch me squirm. They were waiting to watch me break down because now all eyes were on me. And they gave me an equally, difficult tooth that I had in the original practical. And God be praised, they watched everything I did. At the beginning of the practical, I shoved it up their ass, and I had a sweater on, and I went, nothing up my sleeves, nothing up my sleeves. And I finished, and I had a white piece of paper like this, paper towel, and I put it right on there. I says, I'm done. I'm done. Can I go now? Can I go now? It was perfect. All of them were like silent, dead fucking silent, those motherfuckers. Because they had never seen anybody do such unbelievable work. And they're all looking at the tooth like this. One of them picked it up, turning it, put it between his fingers. They passed it around. The tooth was fucking perfect. It did look like a commercially bought tooth. But guess what? I was better than the people that were making the commercially created teeth. And those motherfuckers, guess what they gave me? They gave me a B. Fuck them, a B. How's that? I do have anger issues because people have really fucked with me.
Good reason, John.
Fucked with me in my life. And by the way, if you got straight A's all 4 years of dental school, then the top 3, were able to get whatever fellowship they wanted, like oral surgery, orthodontics, this, that. Well, they spelled it out to me in the first year that you're in the wrong place to be top 3, no matter how fucking good you are. And then to show you what hypocrites they were, 2 of them were orthodontists, and you guys should know what orthodontics do, right? And they secretly offered me jobs. As a first-year dental student, they wanted me to graduate and come work with them, but they didn't want the administration to know. But here they were accusing me of cheating. You fucking hypocrites. So, homie collapsed in the water fountain across from the thing. I had a pair of suede tan cowboy boots, blue jeans. I went through that door, pow, straight kick, whammo. To this day, I think that water fountain is still there. It's the John Gallucci Memorial Water Fountain. I creased the stainless steel vents in. And I walked out after that year, never, ever, ever, never thinking about any of those douchebags. But they were my bosses, and that's how they treated me. Med school, everybody was pretty damn good. Everybody was pretty much on the up and up, and that was okay. Surgery residency, wow. Most of the people were good, but there were several outright psychopaths. Psychopaths. Just stuff that, if anybody called HR on them today, they would be ejected from the institution immediately. Specialty fellowship, there were 5 or 6 full-time faculty people, instructors, mentors, and everybody was generally wonderful, except the director just couldn't not be a dickhead. It was just so, and people wonder why I haven't gone back to visit or why I haven't joined the Canadian Association of Pediatric Surgeons. Why? So I could see him, the guy that denigrated me every chance he could? I didn't deserve that. He thought I deserved that, and he thought it was his place to do that. Moving right along, job 1, 2, and 3. The first CEO of my first job was a backstabbing, lying piece of shit. That's the CEO of the hospital. My first associate that I was hired to work under was immediately jealous of me and used to hide cases from me. Hide cases from me? What? Really? If you got a big, difficult case, instead of hiding it from me, ask me to scrub with you. Mentor me. It was my first job. Well, get no luck on that one. No luck at all. Second job, I was lined up with a sociopath. A hardcore fucking sociopath. That's all I'm going to say about that. The guy's still in the woodwork somewhere. And my third job, I went through, I think 4 or 5 chair people and 7 hospital CEOs, and I suffered the slings and arrows. Really, this isn't a boo-hoo for me. This is just an expose on what you're in for. And I remember at my first job, the physician-in-chief of this particular hospital was a guy I had a commonality with. He used to be the chief of pediatric GI at the institution we both trained in up in Canada. And after a meet and greet meeting with all the subspecialists, he and I walked together to the parking lot of the restaurant because we happened to park next to each other. He says, he goes, we'll know in a year or so whether this is all real or whether it's just fake, a hoax. And I looked at him kind of as the newbie, and I says, well, what do you mean? He goes, a lot of these jobs, he goes, they just throw people together. He goes, for a different reason, a different hidden agenda. He goes, and then the whole thing evaporates. He goes, it's kind of like a marriage. He goes, you get engaged, everybody's excited, you have an engagement party, then you have a big, big fucking wedding, and 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, you're divorced. He goes, because it really never was real. And I was like, oh my God. But he taught me. He taught me, then he said to me, remember something, your first job is never going to be your last. So for the newbies out there, for the newbies that have your hearts and minds set on your first job, be the best you can be. Bring your heart to your job. But remember, statistically, your first job is never going to be your last. That was a real rant I went on, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a good one, though. A lot of history there, and a lot of obviously emotional memories. It just shows
Well,
you.
but you look, part of that was me alleviating you from, you have a great relationship with
Yeah,
the present state of affairs, and we're going to leave it like that, right?
yeah.
Right.
It was awesome. It just shows you that certain bosses, I mean, I don't know how they get their job, why they stay there. It's not to further the department. It's not to further anybody else's career. It's just sole survival. And there's a mentality that is antisocial, anti-behavioral. It's horrible.
It's horrible. These
Yeah.
people, a lot of them are sociopaths. They're
100%.
they're antisocial.
Yeah.
They're narcissistic. They really are. But I'll say this: some corporations, whether it be, a corporate body that makes widgets, or whether it's a law firm, or whether it's a hospital, but it's really true for the healthcare system. The board will hire a president and or CEO as a closer. Just like in baseball, you have a, remember Mariano
Sure.
Rivera was,
Sure.
I don't know, wasn't he the best closer, I think, in
Absolutely.
history? At least to me he
Absolutely.
was, right?
Yeah.
Except he was closing for the Yankees. These son of a bitches, when their agenda is to destroy a hospital, it's kind of like Joe Biden fucking our economy. But to me, Joe Biden is doing to the United States what hospital boards or presidents would do to an institution by hiring a CEO that's a closer. What does a closer mean? It goes against every logical sense of what a top executive in a hospital should be doing, what they should be looking out for. Increased revenue, decreased, frivolous spending, cutting dead wood, all of that stuff. The general public could understand that, but there are some people who are bought in to close the place. And what do? They'll do things like enter into phony negotiations with a big, huge department. Let's say I'm the president of the board, and we have an agenda to close the hospital or to really deep six it, to make it go into the red for whatever reason, because the business world's full of that bullshit and shenanigans. So we hire a closer, and behind closed doors in the smoky room, the closer knows that before long they're going to be getting the hospital torpedoed. And how do they do that? They make the wrong deals with supply houses, from bread to sutures. They might get a whole department. Like, what's more pervasive everywhere in a hospital system than the Department of Medicine or the Department of Radiology, right? Right? Or the lab. The lab is like everywhere. Millions and millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars built. And you enter into negotiations with the chairman and the hierarchy of that department. And they think you're negotiating. But the hired hand, the hired hit person, the closer isn't really negotiating. So before long, the negotiations break down, and that entire department is fired from the hospital. If they were a private group with an exclusive contract. I've seen it the other way around, where they were full-time faculty department, they were anesthesiologists, and anesthesia is so important to a hospital. Every one of the anesthesiologists at a hospital, I will go unnamed, was fired, and every single one of them had to interview for their jobs back at a 50% salary cut.
Jeez.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Oh, yeah.
horrible.
So what the result? The result is now the hospital's torpedoed. I mean, really torpedoed. So you got to be aware of the agendas that you just could never fathom. And the business world and the political world is full of that shit. Full of that shit. That's the same shit that Joe Biden's doing right now. That's why I said on a previous episode, hospital systems are like a small paradigm of Washington. It's nothing but filth and fucking corruption and debauchery. Heh.
John, is it possible to alchemize this episode?
Yeah, I think it is. And you know how? We're moving into a new age. Screw the New World Order. Screw Klaus Jerk-off Schwab. Screw all of those people that come together and run the World Economic Forum. Screw the people that create microbes in labs so that they can be released, so that we could have chaos on the planet, so that they can drive their agenda and drive all of the sheeple toward being chipped, under surveillance, merged with AI, just like that fucking evil, bald-headed monster Yuval Harari. Don't even look that motherfucker up other than to say, no matter what this guy says, keep him out of power. Who cares what he says? He's pure evil. He wants to meld people with AI. Oh, that's a good fucking idea. We are leaving that world behind. God-loving people, people with good, kind hearts, the real people on this planet. In my Father's words, remember who you are, because we will ascend from this ugly, ugly third dimension that's just full of darkness, fear, and corruption. Because that's the only way these evil, dark types can exist is in a low vibration existence. It's a low vibratory state. We are going to transcend that. We are. And if you don't understand that, start looking up the ascension of humanity from third dimension through fourth into fifth dimension. And those evil types just won't be able to live where we will be. They won't. And the only way to alchemize that is to say that and to say, people, your thoughts are creative. You've heard me say this before because, you know, there's a common denominator through every ending of every one of these episodes. If we joke around a bit, then we identify and point to the shit and the debauchery and the detritus of humanity. But then we've got to alchemize it. We can't just leave it there. We have to offer that path to get above and beyond the darkness of this present world. And it's through your heart. It's meditation. It's prayer. It's creating your environment with your consciousness. And remember something, your heart is that energy flow that allows you to ride in God's river of love and light. That's how we alchemize all this crap where people take advantage of each other. They're horrible bosses. They're ugly. They're evil. They're accusatory. They're insulting. They're here to destroy humanity and to test every single one of us. And I've been through it over and over and over and over again. Now I'm my own boss, except my two dogs are my bosses. They tell me when to cook for them, and they tell me, get me this, get me that, let me out, let me in.
There's always
That's
somebody.
okay.
Always
That's okay.
somebody.
I'd rather have my two dogs be my boss now than anybody else that were my bosses in the past. That's it. Amen. It's all in your hands, people. If I didn't make it clear, it's in your hands. You're a chip off the old block. You're the creation of the Creator, which means with your consciousness and your thoughts and your heart, You either create a horrible, disgusting, tyrannical New World Order a la Yuval Harari and Klaus Schwab, or you create heaven. Heaven on earth. The choice is yours, people. Wake up, open your eyes. Be that person who has the eyes to see and the ears to hear. That's it, brother.
Great job, John. Thank you for that episode.
Yep.
If you like what we're doing, people, press the like button down below
And subscribe.
And
Subscribe.
Subscribe.
It
Thank
costs
you.
you nothing.
The Jersey Alchemist. Till next time. Peace.
That's it.